Hello, this is Crystal, and you're watching Real Eyes on Crypto Dealers TV. I got a second guest here on Block Show Germany, Angell, the head of partnerships in Byteball. Hello, Luke. Nice to meet you.
Pleased to meet you.
Unfortunately, I didn't know anything about the Byteball. It was always like coming through me. I don't have it in my portfolio, in my blockfolio. So please tell me, what is the Byteball? All I know is that you're working without a blockchain and you had an ICO. How it could be even?
Well, Byteball is a distributed ledger protocol that's based on directed acyclic graph technology, so DAG for short. It's a DAG coin. There's a number of other ones out there in the market. Byteball was one of the first. And it is basically an alternative to blockchain, but it still uses distributed ledger and it still uses community consensus to make all of the transactions secure and creates an immutable ledger. So from a security standpoint and a transactional surety standpoint, it's basically the same as a blockchain. However, our founder and chief programmer who developed the entire concept, he was in love with Bitcoin and with blockchain for a number of years, and of course, as any great programmer, he dug into the details and decompiled it and looked at it and thought about some of the things that weren't done in maybe the best way that it could have been, and he wanted to try and improve on the idea. So what he saw was the limitations in terms of scalability, in terms of transaction speed, the number of transactions per second, and of course the cost that's involved with processing blockchain transactions, because you have miners who have to approve the transactions. Well, in DAG, because it's not a blockchain, blocks aren't created, they're not submitted to the chain by miners who then use up a lot of resource, both financial and energy, to add those transactions to the chain. Instead, transactions, you post them, you don't need permission from anyone. You as a user post the transactions to the chain, and it's mapped in a graph. Directed acyclic means that the graph will not repeat. So it's a linear graph that just goes forward.
It's very easy to understand, actually. So you don't have any blocks, you just go through other, another.
Right, every transaction is posted to another transaction. Now the consensus comes in with a special class of users. So not like miners who can also change the transaction, they're just witnesses. So they just attest that this transaction is a legitimate transaction, and therefore, there's no problem with double spend, and they're able to attest that these are the legitimate transactions. So once you have a witness attest to one transaction, then that part of the chain basically becomes secure, and the transactions are confirmed.
If we will remind the projects that don't have any blockchain, the IOTA is the one of the projects that don't have it at all.
Correct.
What are the difference between your project and the IOTA?
Well, IOTA is one of the other DAG projects that's out there. Their technology is essentially based on the same type of technology. They are much more focused in the Internet of Things, and the main difference is, so they've created a lot of corporate partnerships, and they made a couple of sort of changes to the fundamental cryptography that all of the blockchain and DAG is based on. So they created their own cryptographic library, and they made things a little bit more complicated. Our entire philosophy is to try and make things as simple as possible and as usable as possible. So we've been much more focused on P2P transactions, conditional P2P payments, and to create an application store so that people can begin to develop applications on our platform that actually can be used by people who have our wallet. So that's the main difference. We're trying to create things that can be used today. So far, from the white paper, which was published in 2016, we're at about 90% feature completion. So I think probably by the end of this year, we'll be there or thereabouts.
So your roadmap goes pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, our focus has been not on marketing or creating a lot of hype, which is maybe why you didn't know so much about us. Unfortunately. But you see, now that we're coming to the end of the the roadmap from the white paper, we're starting to build up the team so that we're doing more than just having an amazing product and a lot of great technology that's being built, but now we're bringing on people to communicate that to the world and to encourage more people to develop applications on the platform. So in my role as partnership, the head of partnerships, for instance, my role is to work with corporate innovation departments to create hackathons, to sponsor their programmers using it in different applications. We're working with universities. In fact, we've had our first pilot use-a-thon for a student population. It's actually a university based in Venezuela, and it's a model that's going very well. We look to replicate it so that we can get our technology in the hands of the next generation of programmers who are thinking about how can we actually create the killer apps for blockchain. What everyone's talking about now, distributed ledger, blockchain, the future, the future, the future. We're trying to speed that up and make it the present.
What are your future plans, and which markets you want to cover?
Well,
what is your ideal client?
Well, our sort of long-term roadmap is really to become a payments platform, right? We would love to be able to process, our kind of grand vision is up to 1% of the world's e-commerce transactions through the platform. We have a particular type of smart contract that is extremely easy to use, so it's based on natural language. So any two people can get on the platform and create the smart contract and implement it in a matter of minutes. Obviously, it's based on templates, and that library of templates is growing as the amount of transactions are being processed in the system. But unlike Ethereum, where you have to create a smart contract, you have to get a developer to code it, you have to get an auditor to check it, and that costs time and money. We can create very simple smart contracts, which mean that from certainly a peer-to-peer commerce standpoint, you can make transactions very quickly and very easily and very securely, because you have the smart contract which governs the relationship between two people who may or may not know each other, but therefore makes it a trustless transaction, because the trust is put in the smart contract, and we use a different oracle to determine whether those conditions have been fulfilled, and if they have, the money is released. If it's not, the money returns to the sender, and no harm is done. So you're not sending your money to someone and then, hey, I didn't get it, now I have to try and somehow figure out how to get my money back. And with this type of mechanism, then we can really facilitate the transfer of assets from one person to another without any intermediary, which is really, when you look at Satoshi's white paper, is really kind of the philosophy of blockchain, and that's what Anton, our founder, was a big fan of this entire concept and the philosophy of it. We pay obviously a great homage to Bitcoin and what they started, and the philosophical shift that they've made really in the world, and we're trying to implement it in a fast and best way that we can.
Wow, truly to say, I suppose that Ethereum needs to understand that he will have a kind of problems in a few years.
Well, I wouldn't say that they should really, be too worried. It's not about, we're not coming out for them, but we're trying to help make this vision a reality. Yeah, and of course there's issues with scalability with the blockchain the way it is. Now, of course, there's enough time, I think, and resource now from the likes of Bitcoin that they're all trying to address it with second-level technology, with the Lightning Network, and to improve scalability. Because of course, if we can't scale this, then there will never be mass adoption. And that was one of the things that our founder recognized. Tony said, okay, we've got to make this as accessible as possible. So how can I try and solve this issue?
Good. Taking my hat off. That's good. Yeah, that works. So, Luke, thank you so much. It was very nice to see you and to meet you. I'll get more knowledge about the Bitcoin in a 30 seconds, maybe 45.
Okay, well, please let me know if you have any other questions, and I'm always here to help.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.